Okay, so now we're going over theories, concepts, metaphors, other things to help further understanding. What a theory or a concept is kind of an umbrella way of explaining a large subsection of topics, right? That's what a theory is. It'll make more sense. But here, you can start to coin your own theories. So let's duplicate this first this time. But you can see here that it's pretty simple. So the connections and the description of your theory. So connections come from having multiple discoveries and connecting them together in order to form a theory because you have a lot of data there, right? There's something there with all the connections. And so, but we can do it from one, right? I'll do it from this one. So from $0 to $1, in order to get experience, you have to start from zero experience. So a theory around this, because I see it happen all the time, right? It's a limiting belief where people they get stuck in a specific part because it's like, see, in talking about this and like theorizing this is how you come up with these theories. Uh, so it's like you have to start in order to get experience, but you don't know how to start when you don't have much experience or real world experience. So this could be like Dunning-Kruger. I guess this is the theory of imposter syndrome, right? That's what it is. So what you can do here is create your own theory on top of imposter syndrome. How would you explain it? Right? Because imposter syndrome, it has like a whole depth of ideas behind it relating to confidence and other things that you could start to dissect and connect together. So this could be like I would pretty much copy this and paste it here, or you can reference the block. So you can copy link to block and put it right there, and that's really it. And then that eventually will go there, or you can just copy paste this if it's easier for you. However you want to do it. It's just to have a list of connections there, so you can go back to them and see the entire depth behind it, right? And so description of your theory. Let's just throw imposter syndrome in right here. We can talk about how there's a lack of confidence, and then you can start to expand on these even more, and you can see how these build on top of each other, and eventually you start to create these very complex and or simple concepts that have a very complex like iceberg under them that you can go on to explain in a book, in a product, in your outline, whatever it may be. And so imposter syndrome, confidence, and I'm doing this off the dome. The way I usually do this is write things down, go on a walk, go about my day, and eventually the idea comes to me or the inspiration comes to me to come back and actually create this well. It's the same thing for headlines and anything else you're writing. A lot of the time, it does not happen in one sitting. So, with this imposter syndrome, confidence, the boom, got one. The learning paradox or the experience paradox, right? That's what it is, the experience paradox. So how would I describe that? You have to. I mean, okay. So this is also similar to fake it till you make it. So now I'm creating my own theory around these, right? You have the ability to do this. I've said this many times already, but like don't pigeonhole yourself in a place where you think you're any different from anyone else that is creating these things. Someone that created the term imposter syndrome is just a random dude. It's like a random dude that probably experienced imposter syndrome and he called it imposter syndrome and it caught on. That's how ideas start to spread via word of mouth, right? You can create anything that you want, okay? Don't think otherwise. For the experience paradox. So you have to start gaining experience before you can gain experience. So that pretty much sums it up. But the depth is in the connections, right? So if I ever write a book chapter or a lead magnet or an article on the experience paradox, then I can go in here and I can start to flesh out everything, and we'll piece this together in an article in one of the next sections where you put it into your outline and you create content based off of that. But this can be a tweet. This can be a very unique tweet right here, right? I've written a few of these before where it's like the something paradox. But the experience paradox, you have to start gaining experience before you can gain experience. There's probably a better way of saying that, right? But that's where you come back, you edit it, and you do other things. And so now I want to help you be able to come up with these, right? Because usually they're based off of other people's, but you're just bringing a fresh perspective to it. You're bringing a unique way of thinking about it and a way that is tied to you. This is how you advance your brand. This is how you become more well known for your unique ideas, right? And so you guys get to see my book, right? So I haven't released this yet because I'm busy building out the cohort, but I've started writing a book and outlining it. And again, this is why outlines are so important, is because they just expand over time. This has gone through so many different iterations. It's been so messy. That's what I recommend, is like there is no structured way of outlining a project, and you can do this in the Notion Hub under projects. I didn't do it in here because I didn't have this when I started writing the book, so it's just a separate Notion page. But you could easily come in here. You could create a new project, name it The Art of Focus, which is my book. Set a deadline if you want, status type, brain dump ideas, or just quick capture ideas from the queue that you popped in there. And then I can create sections. I can create other things to manage it more. And look, what do you know? A concept of my own, focus framing, which came from many different things. But let's take a look at my outline, right? So the game. What is the game? The game is the game of life, right? I studied game theory a bit. I watched some actualize.org lectures. Again, all of this came from consumption. You have to be consuming information. So the game, one thing that played a big role in this was actualize.org's The Mind Game. Life, it's all a mind game. This is what I mean by when you consume something, you have to take notes on the things that like pique your interest. I could not stop listening to this. This is so good. Like I was just immersed. I was captured. I'm like, this makes so much sense for the things that I was experiencing. It was like causing a lot of clarity and dopamine in my head. And you've experienced this when you're consuming something, you're like, that makes sense. I understand this. That's when you know it's real. And so none of what I have is copied. It's just I listen to this and then I come back in the queue and I'll write out my own summary in the way that I understand it based on my current perspective and experiences, where I've heard about goals before. I understand that in a game there's goals, there's other things that I've talked about, right? And so in the game, I talk about life's a game within a game, everything's a game, and I just called it the game. That's my theory, right? That life is a game. And I have my own way of explaining that, even though people have said that before. My why, the reasoning behind that, is what makes it unique, right? So the 3 pillars is another concept. All of these are just concepts. So the 3 pillars is, I actually got this tattooed on my neck. It's just 3 pillars, and it's on the cover of the book. The 3 pillars, this mainly came from me noticing things and making connections, where pillar 1 is focus. So the next is energy, and then experience. So this came from a lot of like The Power of Now, a lot of spirituality books, where it's talking about directing your attention, not paying too much attention to negative thoughts, how those thoughts can create specific energy, and then you focusing on those is what kind of transfers the energy. So it's very complex. I don't want to confuse you or make you think that you have to go this in depth, because you don't. The lens is based off of perspective. And again, this is why consuming information is so important. You have to be exposed to good, big ideas that you haven't been exposed to before. And like all of this came from a lot of study on perspective, perception, reading books on spirituality and how, and even human understanding. And I'm starting to take these big ideas that really resonated with me and made sense to me, and I make them my own, and then I start to formulate concepts around them, right? So people talk about God or the universe or whatever their notion of God or a higher intelligence is, and I came up with to infinity, or infinity, the infinite, and the unknown. I've came up with anchors and vessels because of just making connections, right? Because all spirituality teachers say focus on your breath. And I find solace in music. I know nature is a good thing. And so those are anchors, right? If I want to calm down, I can focus on my breath. I can throw on music. I can go out in nature. What other anchors are there? Principles. So if you're learning a skill and you have no idea what you're doing, then go back to the principles or the basics and start executing on those. The five senses, you can become very conscious of all of that. Physical expression, so writing, journaling, speaking out to other people to gain more awareness on things. Music, certain energetic frequencies, visualization, affirmations, metacognition. You can see how I capture everything. I capture everything in the queue and I make sure to organize it, right? And if you want to become like a top creator or have these unique ideas, then this is what you need to do. And then inside the game, so the original concept was the game. You have to create a character, which is your identity. So I have to study identity to understand this more, right? And so I started studying identity. I started taking notes on the things that I would like to include in my book and make my own. And I did that. There's abundance, creation hierarchy. A lot of you guys know that. It's a concept. Actually, it's a process, but you can see what I mean here. And so the way that I did this and the way that I recommend you do it is to reread your favorite books. Reread your favorite books and go through this process multiple times. Not that process, but inside the mind, right? Where you create experiments, you create processes, you create theories. And now these theories can be book chapters. The processes can come at the end of book chapters, right? Because that's all a book chapter is. It's the APAG writing framework. So I introduce the problem, I give my argument, and then I give steps to overcoming it, right? So I give the what, which is the theory. I give the how, which is the process, and then the why, which is the depth within all of that, the problems, benefits, all this other stuff, right? And this is an incredible, like, game-changing thing for writers or just creators in general, and being able to separate yourself from the crowd. So that's what I recommend, is not only your favorite books, but the things that really resonate with you and help you understand. So when you see a video on YouTube that you think you'll be interested in, save it to watch later and watch it later. If you see a tweet that makes everything click, note it in the queue and note what it's for, and then you can use it later, right? And this is also why creating an outline for literally anything is extremely important, because then you can tie ideas back to it and they make more sense. So that is all I have to say, is start creating concepts. I can't tell you how to create a concept aside from what's in here, because it's dependent on your current knowledge and your current understanding and all of the discoveries and processes that you create in here. Have fun with this. This is literally creation. Like, you are a creator. You are actually creating things here. This is an art. This is a like very esoteric art. This isn't like design. This is like you're creating knowledge rather than you're creating something intangible. There's a lot there, and I personally believe we are very early to this scene. So if you can master this, you're set. You're really set, because you're expanding your mind. You're quite literally training your creativity with this. And eventually you make big discoveries. You're like, oh wow, yeah, you can create knowledge. You can do all of these other things. And so just to wrap this one up, we will call this one the experience paradox. And boom, that can be used for anything. And whenever someone has this problem, you refer them to your articles on the experience paradox, right? So that's I love doing this stuff. Like this entire process is so fun. It's really fun. So I encourage you to do this and have fun with your content creation and just start creating new knowledge, creating new ideas. I'll leave it at that.